All right, so we're going to go over all the V's. So first we have K10, which is about pure austerities. One should only perform austerities to please God. That is the only way to please God. There is no worse sinner than one who does not realize God to be the all-doer. And realizing all-doer is the supreme cause of liberation. Maharaj has true zeal only for renunciation. True zeal only for renunciation. It's been 21 years since he last met Ramanand Swami, and he encountered many different of these alluring clothes, vehicles, wealth, but he had true zeal for renunciation. So that is K10. True principle is also to realize God to be the all-doer, offer profound loving bhakti to him while maintaining a master-servant relationship with God. K11 is characteristic of affection, which is one would not disobey the wishes of the beloved. One would never disobey the commands of the beloved God. The example is that of the gopis. They knew that Krishna Bhagavan did not want them to visit, and because they knew that they did not want them to visit, they did not visit. So they did not disobey his command. That is the characteristic of affection. If one treats the Panch Vishays that are not related to God as insignificant and only attaches to God by the Panch Vishays, then that devotee has a great rapport or connection or relationship with God. K12 is on tamarind seed in the same way that the skin of a tamarind seed is strongly rooted to the seed, right? The skin of the seed is rooted to the seed. The same way the cotton body is strongly attached to the jeev, and the cotton body can be roasted through meditation and words of God. And only when one attains the company of a sadhu, right? Company of a sadhu, when one realizes the form of God through the words of that sadhu, imbibes the words of God in his heart, only then is the cotton body attached to the jeev burned. G22 is streamlet of water. The jeev thinks that all of these vicious natures are attached to the jeev, thinks that it is attached to the jeev, but that is not the case. The desire to indulge in the Panch Vishayas comes externally through the indriyas, not internally through the antakaran, but it is externally through the indriyas. So the method of eradicating that attachment is not look at alluring women or objects through the eyes and to control the indriyas. And by having control over the indriyas, you don't allow the external vishays to pervade the antarkaran. That is streamlet of water. And in the same way, if a well is filled with water, you cannot have new water flowing into the well. In the same way, if one remains fulfilled from within by thinking I am the Atma, then external Panch Vishays cannot pervade the Antakaran. So that is the methodology for removing the Vishays that have already entered the Antakaran. G27 is about a poor man, is about one may have intense shraddha to eradicate their swabhavas, but sometimes this is not possible, and that is due to the deficiency of vairagya. A poor man may have a lot of shraddha to attain sumptuous clothes and food, but how can you do that? In the same way, if you don't have vairagya, you have deficiency of vairagya, then it's very difficult to eradicate the fault. So what is a way to overcome this? One way to overcome this is to serve a great sadhu, intensely persevere in their objection of the commands. And once you do that, God will look upon that person and see that lust, anger, and all these vicious natures are harassing him very much. And so may they become eradicated. So they will instantly become eradicated. And if they have become instantly eradicated, then they should have known to be eradicated by the grace of God. G211 is about karmas. People think that they only deal with dharma, arth, and kam. People only think that they deal with dharma, arth, and kam. And so when they think that they only deal with dharma, arth, and kam, their karmas become sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, and they do not attain the gunatit abode of God. But when one thinks when one does karmas only for the purpose of pleasing God, then those karmas aid in the attainment of liberation, and they do attain the gunatit abode of God. And one who is wise sees non-karma, so non-attachment to the karmas, right? In a person who only performs karmas for the purpose of pleasing God. And he sees a person who is engaged in nivruti as someone who is drowned in karmas. And the difference between one person can pamper their indriyas. One person may be very good at pampering their indriyas. And another person can be doing karmas only for the purpose of pleasing God. So there is a discrepancy between these two types of people. So that is G211, converting the karmas that we have into pious karmas, into pure karmas that aid in liberation. Right? If one perceives a flaw in someone who does karmas for the purpose of pleasing God, then Adharma and his retinue will reside in that perceiver's heart. G216 is faith and glory and faith in God. So why is Bhagavan called Dharma Dhurandur? Is because dharma only takes refuge in the form of God. And all forms of dharma are supported, all forms of dharma are supported by the form of God. And so that is why Bhagavan is called Dharma Dhurandur. And dharma only, faith in God or faith in dharma, naturally arises when faith in God is developed. Faith in God is developed. And so one must maintain faith in God in order for faith in dharma to be strong. And one of the ways to eradicate the desires for the vishays is to force the indriyas to abide by the niyams prescribed by God. Abide by the niyams prescribed by God. One who has very strong shraddha, characteristics of one who has very strong shraddha will be enlightened immediately, whereas one who has weak shraddha, it may take many lives. It is an analogy is someone who only walks 2 miles a day. To get to Kashi, it will take 20 days compared to someone who perseveres and travels many miles a day. It will only take a few days to get to Kashi. That is the analogy that Maharaj gives. Abide by the niyams. Characteristic of a strong shraddha is also the vishays will not be able to impact. Vishays will not be able to be impacted by, will not be able to impact them. And characteristics of someone who has strong shraddha is that they will be very haste and act very hastily in carrying out their bodily activities when they want to do a service of God, right? Hastily carrying out bodily activities. So that is G216. Right? We also have G222, and then we have G228. 22 is armies, and the 28 is a compassionate lifeline. These two armies is there are two types of soldiers. There's brave soldiers who think that we only want to capture the abode of God. We only want to capture the opponent's flag. We do not care about anything that happens along the way. Coward soldiers, they identify themselves with the body. And then Maharaj gives the example of when he went to Naranara Dev. He wanted to forget all the memories. And after the installation ceremony of Naranara Dev, he wanted to forget all these different memories. And he only forgot all these different memories when he told his man Buddhi Chit Ahankar that if you harbor or resolve anything other than that of God, I will crush you to pieces. And so that when doing that, he forgot all the memories that he wanted to forget. And the mind of an ekantik bhakt, right? The dharma of an ekantik bhakt, he harbors no desire for any object other than that of God. So when a sadhu behaves in that manner, then that is said in the same way that a queen has the same majesty as a king, right? That sadhu has the same majesty. It's on par with that of God. So that is the two armies, brave soldiers versus coward soldiers analogy. Coward soldiers identify themselves with the body. Brave soldiers, they do not care about anything. They want to attain the abode of God no matter what. Compassionate lifeline. Maharaj says that the Vasudev Mahatmya places a great emphasis on Dharma Gnan, Vairagya Bhakti. He said that, Raghunath Ji even criticized or left Sita Ji when she even became subject to minor public criticism. And Muktan Swami says that Ramanand Swami's nature was like this. Maharaj says that only after I have observed a person for a long period of time can I make such a decision. But even then, Maharaj is only displeased. Maharaj is only displeased by spiting devotees when devotees spite other devotees of God. And that is the only way to progress is by spiting devotees of God. And the only way to progress is to serve devotees of God by thought, word, and deed. That is his ultimate principle. Right? Serve devotees of God by thought, word, and deed. G233 talks about non-lust. Maharaj says that he swears by the loss. He swears by the lives of all the Paramahansas that he has never harbored an improper thought about women or wealth in the waking or dreaming state. Right? And only he likes the service of only one who has a non-lust. And so that is why he likes the service of Yogi Brahmachari. And so how can one develop the vow of non-lust? Well, one is to keep the mind engaged in the nine types of bhakti. The two is to keep the prans under control. Three is to keep one's diet and activity regulated. And so once you are able to do those three, it's like the three components of a boa cart. And also something that is practiced regularly can definitely be attained. Even the constant drawing of water rope from a well, right, causes a groove in very the hard, even the soft piece of rock, right, even a soft rope. The daily drawing of water from a well causes a groove in even the very hardest pieces of rock. That which is practiced regularly can definitely be attained. G247 talks about the fact that the Vishayas have never been filled, or the Indriyas have never been fulfilled by the Vishayas, and they never will be. Right? So if a sadhu were to get tuberculosis, they would think that this is such a great thing because it has prohibited me from engaging in all these different sense pleasures and vishayas. So, and if a person stays with a senior sadhu for the temptation of attaining alluring objects, then that person is said to be like a wretched dog. And there's no greater sinner than someone who has jealousy and is greedy for the panch vishayas. There's no worse sinner than that. So therefore, one should eradicate attachment to the vishayas and consider the virtues of a sadhu who speaks to one harshly and not think ill of him. So that is G33. Skipped a few. So G212. So we have art of ruling. So art of ruling talks about that we feel like the antakaran and the indriyas are attached to the jiva, but they are distinct from the jiva. They are distinct from the jiva. One should think that I am stronger than the antakaran and indriyas. One should not think that I am insignificant and the antakaran and indriyas are strong. In the same way, if a king were to possess little to no intelligence, the members of the kingdom and the villagers would not obey his commands. In the same way, jiva represents the the king in the form of the body. Right? If the jiva is weak, if the jiva relaxes his authority, then the antakarans and indriyas will not abide by its command when the jiva wants them to abide by whatever it wants. So that is, and one cannot remain happy when one tries to rule a kingdom without knowing the art of ruling. So what is the art of ruling? Art of ruling is to understand the glory of God. Right? Art of ruling is to make sure that the ears, the tongue is only engaged in the service of God, and all the senses are only engaged in the service of God. That is the art of ruling. G213, divine light. Maharaj says that even if he wants to engross his mind in the most pleasurable and the most charming sounds, tastes, he cannot do that because he remains absolutely dejected towards them. All of the attractive vishayas and all the repulsive vishayas are the same to him, ruling three realms. Ruling three realms, begging is the same to him. Walking on foot or on an elephant is the same to him. Praise or insult is the same to him. Whether someone insults him or praises him and anoints him with sandalwood paste, that is the same to him. He considers all devotees to be same. That is his nature. That is his nature. And he only is able to engage his vrittis on something if he forcefully engages his vrittis on them. It's like we throw a stone into the air, naturally will fall down. It's only when Maharaj forcefully engages his vrittis on something is he able to divert his attention and his mind to that particular object. And that is because his vrittis remain inverted to his Hridayakash. In that Hridayakash, he sees this extremely luminous form, extremely divine luminous form of light, and in that light, he sees the form of God that is fair, but due to the divinity, it appears very light and it's very captivating and it has two arms and it's can be walking, standing, surrounded by these different muktas. And only when one understands this form, even if someone has flaws, if he can understand this form, then all of his flaws will be eradicated. And this idea, one must understand this form even after many lives. Bharatji understood this form, even carried on the knowledge even after numerous lives. And this knowledge is only one can only truly understand this when the Satpurush narrates it. We also have G251, which is about restlessness. Right? When does restlessness occur? Is when Rajogun mixes with Tamogun, right? Behaving as the Atma is the way to be happy. Following the commands of the Satpurush is the way to behave as the Atma. G255 is Goldsmith analogy, where Maharaj talks about if the goldsmith represents the Maya. Goldsmith represents Maya. Right? And that Maya is trying to put silver in the gold, trying to put silver in the gold in the form of all the desires for the Panchashays and everything. It's the members of the family are also doing the same thing. Right? But one can, and the only way to get rid of that is if you remove those elements of silver and you break down the gold into its purest form. Only then can you remove all of the desires that have been polluted, So that is the way to remove the desires from Goldsmith analogy. Maharaj talks about that he only started to have fear only after Ramayana passed away. And that too was only for satsang. Right? G263, gaining strength of the jeev. Serving devotees of God and God by thought, word, and deed is the best way for a jeev to gain strength. The jeev can gain strength by behaving as the Atma, right? But an even greater method than this is if one has love for God and son possesses intense shraddha in serving them and engages in the 9 types of bhakti, then his jeev will instantly gain strength. Thus, there's no better method for a jeev to gain strength than serving God in his bhakti. And so that is all about gaining strength. We also have G259, which is about ultimate liberation, which is that the central principle of all of the different shastras is that only God and his son can grant liberation. And so that is why one must serve God's son. But even if there were flaws in one's parents, wives, or relatives, one would not rebuke them. One would not criticize them. In the same way, one should not think ill of such a sadhu, because if one does, that will harm his liberation. So that's ultimate liberation. I think we went over pretty much all of the other one is one on Niyam Nishan Paksh, which is their 3 attributes. And it also talks about the fact that if there are some respectable people that come into the assembly, they should be given a seat at the front of the assembly. In no way should they be insulted, because if they are, then that can have very negative consequences. So those are the Vaishnava roots for P2, and now stop there.